Hello. So today I'm going to talk a little bit more about Hashimoto's thyroiditis. I have another video that I created which explains exactly what this is, which y'all can watch if you're interested. But essentially, in really brief terms, Hashimoto's is an autoimmune disorder that affects your thyroid. And so my brain is sending TSH, the thyroid stimulating hormone, to my thyroid saying produce hormones, regulate your system, and my body's not responding. And with Hashimoto's, you fluctuate between low levels and high levels of the thyroid hormone. In my case, I usually have much lower levels than I need, and you produce thyroid antibodies, which are attacking the thyroid. Okay, so brief overview. I was diagnosed when I was 14, but I think I've had it before that because the symptoms, which are mainly just extreme exhaustion and tons of other things come from that, like temperature regulation, mood, lots of things. Weight gain can be a big one. But I had that similar feeling of exhaustion before I was diagnosed. But yeah, I have so much to say. Like, I am tired of going to doctors and being told that I can't heal myself. I'm tired of going to doctors and being told that this disease is a mystery and I need to be on this hormone forever, because I know that that's not the case. I have a lot of trauma around doctors' offices and just the sterile environment that is often created, that and the kind of Western medical model where we're like not encouraged to be active participants in our healing. It's kind of like, oh, here, there's such a hierarchy, a power dynamic, like a doctor who supposedly knows everything about the body, and this patient who listens to the doctor and then is told what things they need to take. Like, the doctor will prescribe them something and then, often treat the symptoms without getting to the root cause. And I just have rarely, almost never, felt a sense of like companionship with the doctor I've had, and like them. I haven't felt like a willingness for them to get to know me as a human and not just treat whatever ailment I'm coming to the doctor's office with. Okay, so this is all to say that a little less than a month ago, I decided to go off my thyroid hormones without the guidance of a doctor, because I haven't found a doctor that wants to work with this. I'm seeing my doctor in a few weeks, and I'm gonna tell her I went off and sort of like go from there. But there's just like a ton of fear around going off of the thyroid hormone that you're on. And so the one I'm on now is a compound formula that has T3 and T4. I used to be on Synthroid, and I've tried levothyroxine. The compound is working well, but I did this women's retreat in Norway and just like was getting into my body and my voice, like opening up the throat chakra, and was like, okay, I am at a space in my life where I really want to try to go off this medication and see what comes up. I've tried 3 times before this, so I just wanted to kind of like talk about those 3 times. And also, the biggest thing that I feel like this video is about is just that the socio-cultural, emotional impacts of health are not talked about. And like the way, like, I was diagnosed with this disease when I was 14, freshman year of high school, and nothing about my emotional well-being was brought up during that time when I was diagnosed. We don't talk about how young women are feeling when they're diagnosed with such intense diseases and told they need to be on a pill for the rest of their life. Never once did any doctor I saw for Hashimoto's ask how I felt emotionally, nor did my parents or anyone who tried to work with what I had. It was just like, oh, mystery disease, you're feeling exhausted, you can't go on, oh, okay, your hormone levels are saying this, like, pill. And how was I feeling at that time? Well, really awful. I was feeling just isolated. I was feeling like I didn't belong. I had a lot of body image struggles. I didn't go through puberty until I was like 16, and so I was really just like really thin and flat-chested, and I would stuff my bra every day and no one knew, and I had lots of like shame around not having started my period yet, and just like tons of hiding and like absolute like crippling anxiety when I'd walk through the doors of my high school, and all of this was kept inside because I didn't have a friend group that I felt like I could share that with. And my parents, we just didn't have that kind of relationship where I could open up to them. And it's just interesting kind of like tracing it back to when I was really diagnosed with this disease, when my Hashimoto's became unbearable and I started the medication and stuff, just what I was going through. And I've been really feeling into that recently. And also, none of my doctors talk about my cycle, my moon cycle, my menstrual cycle, and how the varying just lengths of that and levels of estrogen and things and progesterone can affect Hashimoto's. Like, there's a link there for sure. I mean, there's our cycles they affect us every moment, even when we're not bleeding. And so I've gone through periods of not having a cycle for 4 months, and then got my period what was considered, I guess, late. And I didn't get until I was 16, and just all these things play a role in my health. And I have recently been taking this course called Cycle Love, about the fertility awareness method of tracking your cycle and of birth control, with this woman, Natalie Daudet. And oh my gosh, so great. But I'm just feeling, also frustrated there, where it's like, okay, there's a connection between my cycle and my health, and want to lean more into that connection as well as I step forward in this healing process. And right now, brief little astrology thing, Chiron is in Aries, and my sign is Aries, and Chiron is the wounded healer. So it's actually going through a 7-year transit of Aries for everyone, but when you have lots of planets in Aries, it can be especially intense. And so the wounded healer will kind of illuminate places in our lives that we have the opportunity to then observe and heal. And so I've just kind of noticed that, the theme of feeling small and feeling like I don't belong and feeling silenced and afraid and misunderstood. Oh my gosh, that's a huge one. Misunderstood chronically, coming up in my life again recently. And it's just kind of cycling back to that time, how many years ago? 14, 15, 18, 19, 20, 22, 9 years ago. It's kind of cycling back to that space when I was a freshman in high school and middle school, which was super traumatic. So coming straight out of middle school and into high school, it really makes sense that I could form a disease where I'm attacking my own body. And I just want to kind of think about that more on this healing process and talk about it more, and have that be a central focus of the healing journey, instead of just a sort of supplemental fact that could have maybe played a role. So the first time I went off of my medication so I wrote some notes on my phone. So I took a gap year after I graduated high school, and I was in Peru doing this yoga teacher training. And basically, the two instructors, Marisol and Christian, they're incredible, and they analyze. They would go through and sort of do little interviews with us before the training, and during mine, it was once we had already gotten there, but they asked about prescription medications and stuff, and I told them what I had and all of this, and they were like, well, we encourage, at least while you're here, trying to go off your medication and heal naturally, and told me certain poses that are good for it, and offered me some material to read up on. And I was like, okay, I'll try it, I'm down. And I did, and basically after a few weeks, that intense feeling of lifelessness entered my system again, and I was like, okay, I got scared. I was like, I need to go back on my medication. And so I did. And I was traveling for some time after that too, and doing other volunteer work, and so I was like, I'm 18, I need to be back on this. Okay, so I went back on it. And then the next time, during that time I felt hopeless, desperate, and scared, so I went back on it. The second time was about less than a year after. maybe 8 months to a year after, almost a year actually, I was in Boulder at Naropa University and just exploring like spirituality more and more and different types of alternative healing. And then I went to a Rising Appalachia and Polish Ambassador concert and did Ecstasy. And it was like so beautiful, heart opening. Oh my gosh. I was birthed from an orgasm, just like had this like celestial experience. Next day, I was like, okay, like get these pills out of my system. And I went to the Boulder Creek and just poured them ceremonially down the creek, and I don't know where they went, but I did that and decided to be off of the medication. And I had started seeing this naturopathic doctor named Joanna Riley, who was cool, and she was like on board with me being off of the medication, but also kind of like why. And we just had some places where we didn't agree. I wasn't eating meat at the time, and she wanted me to, and we didn't fully vibe, but she was supportive of me not being on them. But anyway, I started to experience the same thing, like a ton of lethargy, and I was in a place where I could take a bit of time for that, but I had to drop a class and was just trying to like explore that, and like using some herbs and stuff to try to manage it and my diet a little bit. But ultimately that summer I went home and I developed a thyroid nodule or a swollen lymph node. It was kind of unclear. It like felt like a swollen lymph node, but then I went to see my doctor that I had been seeing during high school, who was just like a general practitioner, and she was like, oh wow, you have this thyroid nodule, and if you don't go back on your medication, then it can become cancerous, so go on your medication. Kind of like, why aren't you on it? You should be. And so I was like, okay, like I'm terrified, I will go back on it. And I did. And that summer was challenging. I was also on depression meds. I was on Lexapro. That was, like coming out of Naropa, where I did a lot of psychedelics, and then coming back to my hometown and just like, okay, thyroid stuff, mental health, like what is my place? Like who do I trust with my health? And yeah, I definitely felt like I couldn't trust myself, so I put my faith in the doctor I had at the time, and she got me back on the medication quickly. And the third time I went off my medication, which I forgot to mention, thus the change in scenery, was a year ago, almost to the date, after I did an ayahuasca ceremony with a group of all women. It was with a mentor of mine that I've known for a while and deeply trust, and it was just a powerful experience. And after I had a very similar reaction, I was like, I'm getting off my medication again. So there's a pattern there, and the things that trigger me wanting to let go of that medication. And so the week after the ceremony, I was off the meds and felt really good. I was eating super well. I was on a road trip with a good friend of mine and able to express myself really clearly and open up my throat chakra. Then I came back and was still in college, in my last semester of college, and just the stress just came back, and I felt very overwhelmed, and all these commitments, and my diet wasn't as clean as it had been, and I went back on my medication. So I was only off for about 2 weeks, maybe 3. Yes, so those are the 3 times. Although after that, there was a brief time when I was in Ecuador and my medication, along with this backpack, got stolen. And so I ended up being on a different form of Synthroid that this dog at the place we were staying in the forest happened to have the same medication that I did, but she had gone off of it, so she had Synthroid. So I was on her medication for a while. But anyway, okay, a brief thing I feel like I should mention is like being on the medication doesn't make all the symptoms go away. But I have noticed that intense feeling of just like being pulled down from the inside out is kind of how I call it. It's like this just like I'm like deflated and like crumple up into fetal position when I'm when I'm like really in that space of feeling like I don't have enough of the thyroid hormone, and because I don't during those moments. So yeah, the medication will help with that because it replenishes thyroid hormone, but I'll still have days where that comes up, and just feel, or have days where it's like too high and I feel really jittery, like I've like had a lot of coffee or something, and pretty much always have that brain fog, which is a big symptom, like the lack of clarity, and it's just like I don't like not being aware of what's happening in my body. I don't like being told that I need to be dependent upon this medication and feeling dependent upon it, because there isn't a lot of community that I found. In fact, I haven't like in person found anyone else who is like healing Hashimoto's naturally. Stuff online, I found some people. Vita Lives Free actually is a great resource, and she's a YouTuber, and watching some of her stuff kind of inspired me to start my channel. So she's cool, but I just wanted to speak openly about this and sort of see what comes up and like just put it out into the world that I am doing this, that I am trying to heal Hashimoto's naturally, and it feels very scary to say. I feel very like some tension in my stomach and chest when I speak that, because I feel like the response from people is generally always fear, like, why are you going off your medication? Your doctor doesn't know, like, don't do it. Just this big like tensing up. And actually our bodies are resilient, and if I need to go on medication or maybe reduce my dosage or try thyroid armor or something, which is like usually a pig's thyroid hormone that they take, and you take it, but it's natural. I don't know. I'm open to that. It's mainly just that I really want people in my life and a health provider that will look at healing without this hormone supplement as an option. I want that trust, that baseline of trust that my healing can be in my own hands, and a doctor will guide me to unlock my own healing potential, and that the emotional and socio-cultural impact on my health of where I was when this disease first began, as well as now, is crucial. And yes, I'm looking for communities that believe that. And yeah, because there are lots of parts of me that doubt myself. Okay, quick thing. What I have been taking consistently is Gaia Herbs thyroid support. It has L-tyrosine, iodine, ashwagandha root extract, a seaweed blend, Schisandra berry, Coleus forshoki. Yeah, so this is something that the naturopathic doctor I've been seeing prescribed. I don't know how much is helping. I think it is. There's so much research done around iodine, too much and too little, and how that can affect things. But I have been taking this, so just wanted to mention that. But one last thing that I will share is that in the month or so of being off of it, I have had days where I feel that like intense exhaustion. And I'm grateful that I'm in this moment in my life, this pocket, where a lot of the time I can give into those spaces. But most recently it happened on last Friday when I was going on a little trip. And I felt like that, the fear came up. I was like, do I take my medication? Like, what do I do? And then I had some time. I had about half an hour. And so I went to my sister's room. She's not here. And it's like nice in the sunlight, and there's a carpet. And I just laid down and put my head on my chest and my stomach, and was just like rocking and feeling what came up and feeling the physical sensations. A lot of times it'll start out as numbness, and then I got deeper, and what came up that time, I believe, was about feeling misunderstood. And I just sort of cradled that aspect of myself that has felt really misunderstood. And especially the part that in early high school and middle school felt just so alone. Loneliness came up, so alone. And I gave into that feeling. I like crumpled into it. Someone else I've been working with, her name's Laura, and she does like somatic therapy and spiritual healing and touch, she has encouraged me to feel into the parts of my body and then really like surrender to that emotion, which is something I've been doing, but not to this extent. And so like that part of me that crumples with Hashimoto's, like what is that part saying? Where's the wisdom in that? And so on Friday when I fell into it and was like, okay, like it's okay, I understand you, I see you, and held my inner child a little bit, I felt better. And I'm really grateful for that. But it's hard because we live in a culture that's so fast paced and not everyone has the time, the actual like time and space to sit down and surrender to those emotions. And I know when I was in school especially, I felt like I didn't. And so I guess I would encourage anyone out there who's struggling with Hashimoto's or any hormone imbalance or energy things happening in their body or illness, disease, to whatever extent you can, create spaces for yourself to feel into the emotions that arise or the numbness that are connected to the physical ailment in your body. Yeah. So that's all. I want to keep talking about this and update on my journey. I'm really trying to be committed to it, but I'm also so scared and feel so alone in this process of healing Hashimoto's naturally, especially in this approach that's not just diet based, but also emotion based. So please share with people who you think would benefit from this. I'm really trying to create a viewership that resonates with my message. So thank you all for watching, and may everyone feel deeply into whatever it is that arises in their lives. Mwah!